On the night of August 22nd, 2025, 23-year-old Ukrainian national Iryna Zarutska boarded a train in the city of Charlotte, North Carolina. For Iryna, boarding the northbound train after a long shift at the local pizzeria had become second nature to her. She found a seat, took out her phone, put her head down, and simply waited for a stop. But that stop would never come. Iryna had unknowingly taken a seat right in front of 34-year-old Decarlos Brown Jr, an individual with a terrifyingly volatile past. Brown was a repeat offender with more than a dozen prior arrests, including a 5-year prison sentence for armed robbery. Running parallel to his lengthy criminal record was the untreated war waging inside his own mind. He had severe, unmedicated schizophrenia and would regularly hallucinate. Yet, somehow, the justice and social care systems had repeatedly returned him to the streets. Within a matter of seconds, something within him snapped beyond repair. The man in the red hoodie looked up, pulled out a pocket knife, stood over Iryna, and slammed it down on her 3 separate times. The young lady could not even begin to process what had happened to her until it was far too late. There were less than 10 people scattered throughout the quiet train carriage that night, just a handful of strangers heading home, wrapped up in their own worlds. As Iryna fought for her life, panic froze the entire carriage. Out of fear, confusion, or shock, not a single person stepped in to stop it. Nobody intervened, nobody helped. And just like that, her usual routine was brought to a violent end. Iryna Zarutska, a young woman who had fled a literal war zone in an attempt to find some form of peace in her life, would never make it home.
Hello and welcome to I Could Murder a Podcast. We are back once again with a devastating case, it has to be said from the very off. But I'm joined by the little boy at the end of the garden who's running around, skipping in the fountain, is Ben Carter.
I haven't skipped in a fountain in many years. That takes me back. Thank you so much for invoking such lovely childhood memories. Yes, back, yes.
Naked. Fully naked and nude.
Private garden, so that's... for now. The land's for sale next to it. Fucking hell. Anyway, that doesn't matter. This case is devastating. Wow. It's actually, when we made this kind of list of the first few cases, this is the one that stood out as, it just makes me feel terrible about the state of the world and hurts my heart. And on that, someone that, you know, could provide some warmth to the heart. How are you, producer Dan?
Always say
your heart warmer.
Yeah, he did. I can really imagine you skipping, Ben. I don't know.
Really?
It really strongly imagine you skipping.
Well, instead of running.
But, yeah.
People used to say skipping, or if you get tired, just skip and then you won't get tired. That's just not true, is it, really?
No. But hello, boys. Good to see you too. I'm feeling very good. I am actually feeling quite anxious, like you both have insinuated. This is a really horrible case. And, you know, when I first saw the footage of this one, it really, really affected me emotionally to witness this. And the initial response, or the lack of, obviously we'll go into it and we'll talk about that. But yeah, it's a really upsetting case. It shouldn't have happened. It's completely unnecessary. But these things do happen. But anyway, I'm looking forward to the end of this episode because we might have a little cheeky riddle queued up for you. So stick around for that if you like the riddles. If you don't, you know.
There's other stuff too.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
There's other stuff too, yeah.
Yeah, there are some people that listen to this just for the riddles. So there have been a lot of episodes that are like really devastating, so they wait the whole episode. But this one definitely has one at the end, so be sure to check that out. Yeah, this is one of those cases that definitely... We cover some which you're like, how haven't we heard, or why isn't this more known? This one definitely entered the kind of zeitgeist and it spread everywhere and people saw the horrifying images that came out from that evening. It's a dark one, but yeah, you know, it's one, like I always say, one to keep in the consciousness and talk about, and lots of different angles to discuss this one. So without any further ado, Ben, what is today's case?
So today we are here to discuss Iryna the girl on the train. Yeah, Tom's absolutely right. You know, last year when this made the news and was all over social media, you couldn't really be anywhere without either seeing video footage or stills from that footage, and they are some of the most horrifying images of recent memory, which is bad to say, but it's terrifying.
Yes, and as we approach the first anniversary of Iryna's death, it is so important for us to tell her story and celebrate her life whilst also shining a light on the many infuriating and highly disturbing failures within this case that ultimately took her life away far too soon. We are going to begin by exploring the backgrounds of both Iryna and Brown before moving on to a timeline of events.
Iryna Zarutska was born on the 22nd of May 2002 in the city of Kiev, Ukraine. She was the second of 3 children born to Anna and Stanislav Zarutsky, having an older sister called Valeria and a younger brother called Bohdan. As a child, Iryna was described as the glue of the family by her uncle. And before she became that face seen by millions of people all over the world, Iryna was just a young girl living an ordinary, quiet life with her family in the Solomyansky district of Kiev. Her mother would later recall some of her earliest memories of Iryna, describing her daughter as a naturally shy and quiet child who was very much a homebody from an early age. While she was brought up in a vibrant and lively community, she apparently loved nothing more than being at home with her family and was at her happiest when she was curled up on the sofa inside their apartment, completely lost in her own world with a sketchbook in her hand. Her mother Anna would also later fondly remember that, even as a young girl, Iryna had the remarkable ability to be able to sleep heavily for long periods throughout absolutely anything. And this apparently included thunderstorms, loud noises from neighbours, or other sounds from within the apartment. They never disturbed her peace. Heavy sleeper, basically.
Yeah.
Or light? No, heavy. Definitely heavy sleeper.
Yeah, heavy there. Yeah. Danny, you're a heavy sleeper, aren't you?
No, very light, very light.
Oh, okay.
You listen to white noise, don't you, to fall asleep?
There's no spice in that.
No, rain sounds.
Rain sounds, sorry.
Can't sleep without them now.
Dan, you'll be horrified to hear this fact. Wayne Rooney sleeps with a hairdryer on the whole night.
Sorry? A hairdryer?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's probably on the cool setting, I think, but...
Literally a hairdryer up there somewhere.
I don't know where it's placed. I just know that it's on.
I think it's for the noise
can't imagine it's
rather
on
than the
him.
feeling.
Maybe it's on a tripod or something.
Mm. But yeah, just wanted to let you know that.
You boys ever fell asleep
Shocked.
in weird places? Falling asleep on a boat floor? The floor of a boat?
Oh, you were sick, weren't you?
Yeah.
That was a different time, but yes, I also fell asleep after being sick.
You get on boats a lot, boy.
I do.
Boats, isn't it?
A surprising amount of boats.
Yeah.
I wouldn't imagine you have very good sea legs.
No, I haven't. No, that's why I sleep.
Yeah.
I tell you what I am good at, like whether it's a train, a boat, a plane, a car, the moment I sit down and the engine starts, I can switch off.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at falling asleep on the plane before it takes off. I'm pretty good at that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
My wife loves that.
As she grew older, Iryna became fascinated by and hugely passionate about art and design. She loved drawing, painting, sculpting, and sewing. And whilst other children in the neighbourhood would spend their time playing out in the streets late into the evening, Iryna would instead simply sit and sketch for hours on end. She had what the family would often refer to as the artist's gift, and was very creative even in her younger years. Alongside this, Iryna was very well liked and popular at school in her local community. She would occasionally babysit her neighbours' young children, with one neighbour remembering,
Iryna was a fun-loving and wonderful human being. She was kind to her core. She used to babysit our children, who absolutely adored her and loved it whenever Iryna arrived.
As well as this, Iryna also created a close circle of friends who she would often go to local parks and cafes with. One of her friends, Lonnie, would state the following.
She was always very helpful, very supportive, and just had a heart of gold. She was a sweetheart, and it makes me sick to think that she's now gone.
In pursuing her passion, Iryna went on to attend Synergy College in Kiev in 2017, where she later earned a formal diploma in art and restoration. Here she would spend a great deal of time building the particular talent of restoring historical artwork and artefacts. Her tutor, a lady by the name of Tatiana, oversaw much of her development at the college, and she described Iryna arriving as a skinny young girl with frightened eyes, but leaving as a young woman with an immense respect for history, a quiet, gentle soul who brought a sense of pure light into the art studio. She left school after graduating at the age of 18, and according to her parents, she continued sculpting and designing unique, eclectic clothing that reflected her vibrant spirit. She did this whilst making plans to, one day, pursue a career as a veterinary assistant. Once again, her mother Anna would recall, "She always refused to sell any of her work. She shared her creativity generously, gifting family and her closest friends with her artwork and clothing. Iryna also had a deep love for animals. She often cared for her neighbours' pets, and many fondly remember seeing her walking them through the neighbourhood, always with her radiant smile. She dreamed of pursuing a career as a veterinary assistant while also working toward her independence by learning to drive. Remarkably, she became fluent in English within a very short time, reflecting her determination and love of learning. Though she enjoyed adventures, sightseeing and exploring new places with her close friends, she was a homebody and just loved being at home with her family."
On the early morning of Thursday, February 24th, 2022, when Iryna was just 19, the peaceful, happy routine of her young life was shattered forever. Between 6 and 7 a.m, air raid sirens filled the city as Russia invaded Ukraine. The Russo-Ukrainian War had officially begun. For Iryna and her family, the impact hit home immediately. As long-range cruise and ballistic missiles rained down on military buildings, command centres and airports surrounding the city, the Solomyansky neighbourhood itself was completely transformed into a war zone. As Ukraine tried to form a response, intercepted missile debris was scattered across the city, sending multiple fiery explosions throughout the district. One intercepted Russian rocket plummeted directly onto the district's railway station and tracks, damaging a major underground heating pipeline and causing an explosion that sent shockwaves throughout the entire area. The sky lit up, smoke filled the air, windows were shattered, and the apartment she shared with her family all of her life was no longer a safe place to be. Within a matter of moments, hundreds of thousands of terrified residents flooded the area, desperately trying to board trains heading west in an effort to evacuate Kiev. Practically overnight, Iryna had to abandon everything. She was also forced to say goodbye to her father. Alongside her mother, sister, and little brother, she made the decision to try and flee underground. For months, the family lived inside a dark, cramped and cold makeshift bomb shelter, listening to the muffled thuds of explosions vibrating through the concrete above them. The family survived on strictly rationed food and water, unsure if their home or their lives would still be intact by the arrival of each new morning. It was clear that this routine could not last much longer, and so 6 months later, by August of 2022, Iryna, her mother and her siblings finally managed to secure a pathway out of Ukraine. However, the escape came with a heartbreaking cost. Martial law prevented Ukrainian men between 18 and 60 from leaving the country, forcing her father, Stanislav, to stay behind and fight. With nothing but the clothes on their backs and dreams of a better, safer life, the Zarutska family crossed the Atlantic in order to move in with an uncle and aunt in the town of Huntersville, North Carolina.
So yeah, that's quite a devastating thing to go through. The headlines were that this was a Ukrainian refugee that was murdered in America. You didn't really hear as much of what she had to face back in Ukraine and how terrifying that would have been, not just for her, but for millions of people that fled the area. And to have to then, survive underground for several months. Terrifying thought. Iryna threw herself into her new life in America immediately. She quickly got to work learning English, making friends in her new neighborhood, and looking for work. She apparently became almost fluent in a very short period of time. With her quote-unquote infectious smile, Iryna quickly made a number of new friends, some of whom were also Ukrainian refugees. She became a popular member of her new community, even working at a local assisted living home where the older residents were said to have adored her gentle nature. It was during this new chapter in America that Iryna met a young man called Stanislav Nikolitsia, whom she affectionately called Stas. He too had fled Ukraine for America, and the pair fell for one another instantly. Because Iryna's family never owned a car back in Ukraine, Stas offered to take her out in his car for driving lessons. She eventually purchased a second-hand Cadillac and would regularly go out for drives to national parks and lakes with Stas. Over the next 2 years, the pair fell further and further for one another, with Iryna's mother describing Stas as her daughter's life partner. And yeah, one news article that I read about this case had screenshots of Stas's Instagram that's still active, and he did what, do you remember that kind of trend that people were doing back in the day, like a 1 second every day? And it would be like 60 days, or he has one of those that he made with her, and it's loads of, hikes, them going to parties, board games, festivals, her doing her art. It's really, really quite moving to see, and he's posted numerous tributes to her since what we're going to discuss happened. In May of 2025, Iryna and Stas took the next big step in their relationship. They moved into an apartment together 18 miles away in the trendy and artistic Noda neighborhood in the city of Charlotte, North Carolina. To make ends meet whilst enrolling in various classes at Rowan Cabarrus Community College, Iryna found work at Zepede's Pizzeria, which is located in Charlotte's Lower South End. Almost 3 years after fleeing war-torn Ukraine, her life had found its peaceful, happy rhythm once again, but it would be tragically cut short just 3 months later.
The man in the red hoodie sitting behind Iryna was 34-year-old Decarlos Brown Jr. Whilst Iryna had travelled thousands of miles across the globe to escape violence, Decarlos Brown Jr. had never really left home, or a life of violence. He was born on the 1st of October 1990 and raised in Charlotte. Like Iryna, he too was in the middle of 3 children. He was born to Decarlos Brown Sr. and Michelle Jewett, having an older brother called Stacey Duhan and a younger sister called Tracy. Stacey and Tracy. I guess there's not a third one there he could have been called. Tracy,
Macy.
Stacey and Macy,
kind of, maybe.
He grew up attending local schools, eventually graduating from West Mecklenburg High School, and was by most accounts an average student, despite his mother stating that Brown was a normal, good-natured and fun young man who was a great sibling. There are a number of records to suggest that his upbringing was surrounded by both violence and crime. The dysfunction began at the very top of the household with the family patriarch, Decarlos Brown Sr. Long before his son gained huge national attention, Brown Sr. had built up a significant criminal history of his own in Mecklenburg County. This record included a series of arrests for offences like breaking and entry, felony conspiracy, aggravated assault, theft, and even carrying a handgun on a college campus. As the father's legal issues increased, the toxic atmosphere at home only worsened, ultimately leading to the complete breakdown of the already strained relationship between Brown's mother and father, completely fracturing the family. Michelle Jewett was left to raise 3 children by herself in an already chaotic environment, where aggression had become the norm and it was only going to get worse. Brown's older brother, Stacey Duhan, would provide the most terrifying preview of what was still to come. In 2012, when Stacey was just 22 years old, he carried out a violent armed robbery in Charlotte that culminated in the shotgun execution of a 65-year-old man named Robert Heim. Mr. Heim was simply walking home from work when Stacey confronted him with a weapon, demanded his belongings, and shot him in the face at close range when he tried to resist. Stacey was later convicted of second-degree murder, 2 counts of armed robbery, and assault with a deadly weapon with intent to kill, which was for shooting a different robbery victim in the back just 1 day prior, who miraculously survived the incident. He was sentenced to 27 to 36 years in prison, and has since accumulated 44 separate disciplinary infractions whilst locked up, including committing further assaults with deadly weapons, setting fires inside the facility, substance possession, and lock tampering.
Lock tampering sounds quite cheeky compared to the rest of that list, because that is terrifying.
Yeah, I'd probably put that one as the first bit on the list, and then you build up to the bit where it's like deadly weapons.
Yeah,
but maybe tampered with the weapon, the lock, to make it into a weapon.
Who knows? So it's a long list, isn't it, of disciplinary infractions. I guess the point here is the father's a career criminal. His older brother is a career criminal. And now we're going to talk about the sister as well, but it's a very chaotic family environment. And this just seems to be a very clear sign that you are a product of your environment. And we're going to talk about the sister in a minute, but basically all of these siblings would be involved in lives of crime at various points and didn't seem to be reprimanded that much. They'd be in and out of prison, in and out of jail. Obviously the mum's been left by herself, as it is Michelle, and the father was perhaps not the greatest role model here. So it's just a circle of not very nice situations.
It's one of those where I think you always have to be the product of your environment. I think a lot of people are able to move away from that. But yeah, sometimes people think there's no other way. This is the way to do it. And well, if my parents did this or my siblings did this, then, that's my life. Sometimes the apple doesn't fall too far away from the tree. Sometimes the apple tree's surrounded by hills and the apple has nowhere else to go but right by that tree, Ben.
Yeah. I wonder if there are any other lock tamperers in the family.
In a disturbing piece of foreshadowing, Stacey had attempted to flee the scene of the murder he committed via the Lynx Blue Line train, the very same line his brother would commit murder on. We haven't even gotten to Brown himself yet, but if that wasn't bad enough, Brown's younger sister Tracy has her own history of damning charges, including a major 2024 hit-and-run incident. Tracy was behind the wheel of a vehicle in Charlotte one night when she struck an innocent pedestrian, Mrs. Elizabeth Banty, running her over and inflicting severe life-threatening injuries. Rather than stopping to help, Tracy drove off into the night, but she was later identified as the assailant, and subsequently found guilty of felony hit-and-run and assault with a deadly weapon resulting in serious injury. In late of 2025, she was sentenced to just 3 years in prison. So is deadly weapon in the car?
I mean, well, I guess it has to be in that situation unless she's done something else. But yeah, so his older brother is a convicted murderer and attempted murderer of an additional victim. His younger sister has been convicted of a felony hit and run and assault with a deadly weapon. And the father's been on various school campuses with handguns, aggravated assault multiple times, breaking and entering. It's, the only person we don't have any kind of criminal record of is the mother, which is quite frightening. And Brown, who we're going to talk about, I mean, his is very frightening compared to what we've already discussed. So the whole family, apart from the mum, are.
Ben said scumbags.
Well, it still works, I suppose.
I didn't.
They're killers.
Killer scumbags.
3 siblings, raised under the same roof, now shared the exact same fate. Which brings us back to Decarlos Brown Jr. Brown had been arrested on at least 14 separate occasions in Mecklenburg County, dating as far back as 2007. His criminal record is a terrifying and consistent escalation of violence, ranging from breaking and entering to armed robbery, felony common law robbery and assault. In 2014, he was handed a 5-year prison sentence for a violent robbery, a defining period spent behind bars that his mother claimed completely altered her son's personality. By the time he was released in 2020, a new, even more dangerous threat was growing, and that was the severe, unmedicated schizophrenia he was now suffering with. His mother claimed that he returned to the family home after 5 years in prison and was diagnosed as schizophrenic soon after, for which he was prescribed psychiatric medication. She also claimed that he became violent inside the family home towards his younger sister for the first time ever, and that she allegedly tried to have him involuntarily committed, but that this was denied. Time and time again, the local justice and social care systems simply processed him, closed his file, and placed him back out onto the streets. After he confirmed he had stopped taking his psychiatric medication, his mother took him to a local homeless shelter due to fears for her own life. He was apparently gripped by profound paranoid delusions, hallucinating wildly, and believing that a man-made material inside his body was physically controlling his movements, and that strangers could read his thoughts.
So that's a lot.
That is a lot, yeah.
And for different systems, be it care systems or justice systems, to just process, I understand overcrowding, but to just simply continually process this man and place him back into the general public, whilst it seems very much that he needs treatment here, is just staggering.
Yeah, it's sad that it's just, because of lack of funding and lack of support, he's just become a formality. He's become a stamp on a piece of paper and is not getting the help that he needs, which is the same for a lot of people out there.
Yeah, one thing I'll say, over here in the UK, we do have our own homeless crisis. I'm not at all papering over those cracks. But in America, when I've been there, it is noticeable that a lot of the people in the homeless community are suffering with some mental health issues, and it feels like it's either, the support isn't there, or if obviously over here we have the NHS, which is overrun in itself. But in America, it seems like people aren't getting the care they need for some mental health difficulties. They end up on the streets, and then things just exacerbate and get worse. And yeah, some of the behaviour walking past, like in New York or San Francisco, is quite shouting and being very loud and seeming like, they could do with some help, essentially. So it's a sad story, this happening to Brown, but I don't think it's anything new. And as well, to be fair, they have given him meds. He's refused to take them. And his mum, she's done all she can. And, feeling like her life is threatened. It must be a big thing for a mother to take, your son or your daughter to a place and be for her in safety, essentially. But if the person wants to leave, I think it's often quite hard for them to keep them restrained and within the facility.
Yeah, that's very true. And the other thing is, it's not only the social care systems that are failing him, it's the justice ones as well, because the amount of times he's been arrested and imprisoned and then just released early, or left on bail or left with a warning, and it's these two systems together failing, I think, was a huge point of this case. When it was revealed how many times he'd been in and out of different systems prior to encountering Iryna is staggering. And no one knows anyone's history like that when you're just sitting down on a train.
Yep.
7 months before the murder of Iryna, Brown was arrested while frantically begging police outside a local hospital to investigate his delusions, but he was released without any kind of psychiatric intervention. Rather than being admitted immediately, Brown was instead charged with misuse of emergency services and was released without having to pay bond.
So that part feels quite significant. Instead of being provided with any kind of help or treatment here, he's instead been charged with a criminal offence and then released. Like, he's outside a hospital, presumably shouting and asking for help, and he's been arrested and charged. That does, and then released, obviously. That does feel very significant.
When you have to pay for healthcare, it becomes like, it's not like that's the jarring thing. It's a service. Obviously, it's a service over here, National Health Service. But when it's a paid service, I don't know. It's a pretty different state to state as well. I imagine what care can be given for free. But it's like, if it's like, oh well, you haven't got the money to pay for the treatment you need, what happens there? It's I feel out of my depth for saying that, but yeah.
You're saying if Brown can't be admitted into hospital because there is a charge applied to that immediately, then what other option do you have? But I think Ben's just had a quick Google.
Well, what I was interested in is if you were voluntarily or involuntarily sectioned in America, is there costs involved there? Because over here in the UK, eventually an escalation or a fear for someone's own safety or the safety of others would result in perhaps that person being sectioned. And in America, according to Google, you generally do have to pay as they are, sectioning someone is treated as a medical emergency in certain states. So depending on your insurance, you could be sectioned, or you may not. Your insurance may not cover. And it could cost up to $7,000 for a week.
And I also just had a quick look. It's if you don't have insurance, which I'm sure is quite common actually, there's no other option. You pay out of pocket, and if you don't have the money, you're instantly in debt. You owe the hospital, and quite a lot of people file for bankruptcy because it's so excessive. The cost is so excessive. I mean, actually, no, let me correct myself. It's not even that the cost is excessive, because healthcare is expensive, but it's just the financial support is not there. It's a insurance-based system. It's really difficult. Brown became an unpredictable walking time bomb, and he was free to walk the streets.
So one image, there are many images of this case that became quite infamous, was Brown's previous, it's been called a catalogue of mugshots, and this was making the news for a long time whilst the case was being shared worldwide. And there are pictures of him during these 14 or so different arrests where I mean, to be completely honest, it doesn't look like a lot of time has passed. He looks kind of almost the same. He's grown a beard in a few of them, but he looks almost the same age throughout most of that.
Yeah.
You know, his behaviors are escalating. He's seeking help. You know, there's apparently overcrowding not only in the prisons, but in state and psychiatric hospitals in North Carolina. There was a 16-day wait for a bed there. You know, he doesn't have his family anymore, supposedly. So, yeah, there's no network around him to support him. And he's becoming increasingly more violent.
We now return to that fateful night in August of 2025. Police and social services have had at least 14 separate documented chances to make sure that Brown was not in a position to be on the same train sitting behind Iryna. But they failed 14 times. And whether overcrowding was to blame or a lack of deemed threat was somehow to blame, it would take a young girl's life to be ended in the most barbaric of manners for any kind of action to be taken. And it is here that we move on to the timeline of Iryna, the girl on the train.
Friday, August 22nd, 2025, early afternoon. Whilst 23-year-old Iryna was hard at work at the pizzeria, 34-year-old Decarlos Brown Jr. boarded a Lynx Blue Line train. He would be caught by surveillance riding different trains throughout the day, almost always sitting or standing by himself, with multiple pieces of footage showing him, quote, acting erratically, talking to himself, making unusual movements, and laughing to himself. Though he was passed by numerous transit security officials, they never approached him or interacted with him or even asked him if he had a ticket, which, by the way, he didn't. At that moment, the security cameras showed Brown actively twitching, making unusual bodily gestures, and muttering to himself. Despite a potential state of psychosis being demonstrated, the guard logs and footage confirmed that they made zero contact with him. The guards didn't even slow down, and the same was the case for other passengers. The vast majority appeared to keep their distance from him the entire afternoon and evening. Which, if you are another passenger in that case, I would probably be doing the same. Keeping, you would just keep away, wouldn't you? I think very few would approach and ask. I don't know, for their own fears of their own safety. Very few would maybe approach and say, "You all right? Are you okay?"
I was on a train in London not too long ago, full train. Tall guy was on the train wearing this like full face mask, not like a mask you'd wear for COVID reasons, kind of like one that pretty much hid most of the face. And I think someone looked at him and then he just started shouting. And it was kind of like, "I've just got out of prison today, I will end you," all the things, like shouting. Like, this is a full London train as well. And the guy they were shouting at was a man with his wife and kid, kind of thing. And it was just like, it was very like, you felt that horrible feeling on the train, the tension. And this guy, with what he was saying, you didn't want to approach him and be like, "Mate, calm down." Yeah, it's one of those where you kind of stand there and go, "I hope he gets off the next station." Is that kind of feeling.
Yeah. We did an episode before, didn't we, on the website, maybe the bystander effect. And how, in that situation, even the way you've just described that, I would imagine myself that I would just keep my head down and hope, as you said, hope that he leaves and just don't make any eye contact.
Yeah, because you hear about cases, where someone just randomly attacks people on trains, and that's happened in the UK before. Like, there's been numerous things where a random attack has happened. Your brain goes to the worst thing that possibly could happen, and then you kind of, obviously, if that escalated, I would like to think people would intervene, but it was just shouting at that time, and it was just like the sensitive thing of, could that kick off if someone was to then try and get involved at that stage?
It's really difficult as well, because I do think like the police advice as well is to generally, well, for the most part, don't even get involved, even if it does escalate and become violent, which I think on the face of it is good advice, because you don't want more people to get hurt potentially. But in a lot of situations, it can create that, like, everybody in that environment, when something kicks off, is like, "No, I don't want to get involved. Mm-hmm. This could potentially hurt me badly." So it's a really difficult kind of situation to figure out when you're in it.
Yeah, no, I was doing my chronicles of stories about being on trains. But I was on a metro up in Newcastle one time, and then there was two people who I'm guessing they looked like they were homeless, drinking on the train during the day, and they were arguing, having a fight, a bit of a squabble, this man and this woman. And then my soon-to-be 85-year-old aunt, Scottish, about 5 foot maximum, jumped up and intervened in the disagreement. They're swinging her arms and stuff like that, and she's saying stop. And then we kind of because she's gone up, we've gone, okay, well, we can't let Jean handle this. So we both got up, and I grabbed the bottle of vodka, that like the glass bottle she was about to swing at this guy, and we're like, take that off them, and then they go off the next station. And it was like, but it's just like, she was straight up there and, stopping it. And it's just like, some people it's within them just to immediately go into that danger zone. But yeah, it's
good on Jean.
Yeah, go on, Jean. I think I'm in a similar sort of frame of mind quite often. I don't obviously want to get involved in violence, but I do find myself, if I see something going on, I'm immediately sort of like stepping ahead just to see, rather than stepping away.
Yeah.
Which is not necessarily a good thing, because like we just said, it could result in more violence.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is it as well. So in Decarlos Brown's case, he was on these trains during the early afternoon. He wouldn't encounter Iryna for several hours, and he was just riding the train up and down, displaying these behaviours. And, employees of the rail line have walked past him and are seen on surveillance walking past him. No one at any point approaches him. Onlookers could see that he was a potentially dangerous man who was also potentially detached from reality, but they had no idea that the justice system had repeatedly cast him back out onto the streets. It is not clear if Brown ever had a plan with regards to where he was going or what he was doing, so he just continued riding the trains. At the end of each line, he would get out onto the platform, pace around, and switch from southbound to northbound before continuously riding to the end of each line. Because Charlotte's light rail operates on an open platform system, Brown was able to freely hop between the northbound and southbound trains all day without a single ticket. Meanwhile, just a few miles away, Iryna was completely unaware of the threat looping through the city beside her, and her long shift at the pizzeria was finally coming to an end.
At 9:46 p.m, Iryna had just clocked out of a shift at the pizzeria. Because she didn't have her driver's license yet, she took her usual route, walking to the station and boarding the northbound Lynx Blue train line at Scaly Bark Station. It was a humid Friday night. Many people on board the train were on their way home, excited for the approaching weekend. She still had a work uniform on, a black Zebedee's cap and t-shirt. Iryna quickly found a seat and sat down. She pulled out her phone and sent her final text to Stas, telling him, "I'll be home soon," to which he replied, "See you soon." It was a simple, everyday message, a message shared many times before, but it would become the final message the pair ever shared with one another. Iryna locked her screen, put her head down, and simply waited for her stop. She had no way of knowing that just one seat behind her, Decarlos Brown Jr. was staring at the back of her head and playing with a knife in his pocket. At 9:50 p.m, approximately 4 minutes after Iryna had boarded the train, Brown stood up behind her, pulled a penknife from his pocket, and violently stabbed her 3 separate times, once in the neck, once in the chest, and once in the knee. Her hat fell from her head during the attack as she covered her face and raised her feet. Brown then casually walked from the area as Iryna looked at him in shock, clutching her neck. There were 5 other individuals sitting within just a couple of meters of Iryna at the time she was stabbed. None of them did anything immediately to help. One man walked away from the area as soon as Brown did. The others just stared in shock. Brown then began pacing around the other carriages, waiting at different doorways whilst repeatedly exclaiming, "I got that white girl." Other passengers moved out of his way as blood appeared to be steadily dripping from his hand that was still clutching the knife. He began to try to take his hoodie off, but struggled. Meanwhile, Iryna, after looking around for help from others, began to lose consciousness and fainted towards the window of the train, eventually falling to the ground. Due to the severity of the wounds to her neck and chest, she is believed to remain conscious for less than a minute before bleeding to death. The wound to her neck cut her jugular vein, and the wound to her chest severed a carotid artery. Eventually, the following calls were made to 911, but unfortunately, Iryna was pronounced dead at the scene.
The woman in the train got stabbed. and she's bleeding right now. She's on the train. She's on the ground right now. There's people around her right now. I think they're holding pressure on this wound site.
Any of us, that could be him too.
911, do you need police, fire, medic?
We on the train, this man stabbed this woman for no reason. I was there right beside her.
You said a male stabbed someone for no reason? Do they need medic?
Yes, on the train, yes, the she bleeding.
Okay, stay on line with medic.
She's trying to stab her.
There were no security or police officers present on the car that Iryna was in, but frustratingly, there were officers present on the train, one car ahead.
Oh, it's made me feel a bit sick. That the way Tom described that, I could see the footage in my mind, and it's just that complete. As soon as it happens, I just remember the shock on her face and her looking up.
Yeah,
just completely stunned.
Yeah, it's really upsetting to see those images because, like you said, Ben, the shock and like the vulnerability that comes out of her is just, yeah, it's really, really sad and really shocking. It's just really sad to see someone going about their daily routine and is confronted with this person who also needs help but has a horrific violent outburst that she's nothing to do with. She's just on that receiving end. And then seeing, which I do get to some degree, is people aren't going to intervene straight away. That's just an impossible task to do. Whether they've seen the stabbing or not, it's sometimes people are in their complete own little worlds. They're not going to see everything around them. People have got headphones on, watching Netflix or whatever. So I do completely understand why there's almost a moment of nothing. But it's still so sad to see these images that she is completely alone in that situation, receiving this absolutely brutal attack on herself. And the shock that you see on her just goes right through you. It's horrible to see.
When you have someone in such a normal kind of everyday moment, it's, as we said, it's a routine. Just go back home, and then you throw just something horrifically violent like that happening to her. And we all, obviously, from us in this case, we know the backstory, where she's come from, her war-torn country that she's fled from, how, all accounts say that she's such a nice, kind human being. And, she's gone from like Ukraine, doing art and whatnot, and then working in the pizzeria just kind of to pay the bills and stuff like that. She's going home to her loved one. And yeah, seeing the images, and as well, the thing that always strikes me with this is how close the chairs are around her and how close the other people are. But you're right, Dan, those people they're just going home. They've done their shift, they're going home, they're just locked in their own world. And again, your brain doesn't go to the worst thing that is happening probably immediately. But yeah, just the horrible still of him over the top of her innocently looking at her phone, and even afterwards, like just the sheer fear in her face and disbelief that this could happen, and why has this happened? Minding her own business. Yeah, it's one of those where, yeah, like we said before, with social media now, these kind of things just go rife, and you see the images, and it's hard to forget it.
Yeah, if you have not seen the images or you have not seen the footage, the way it's framed is that you can see Brown and all of his mannerisms in the seconds and minutes before this happened. You can see him kind of staring at the back of her head. You can see him kind of looking side to side. You can see him reach into his pocket, and you just see her, inches in front of him, just texting, putting her head down, going about her day, and then within a second. And obviously you imagine how quickly these images spread online and how different people interpreted them in different way, because predominantly the other people in the carriage were black, and because the perpetrator was black, obviously certain people took that as, oh, okay, this is a racially motivated attack, and these people didn't do anything for her because she was white, when actually, we'll get onto it, these other bystanders did end up calling emergency services and attempting to provide medical assistance as soon as the area was, safe enough for them to do so. But it became a huge, didn't it? As they often do, it became a huge politically charged case.
Well, it's the downside to social media, how things can fly so quickly. And quite often it's just a single image, isn't it? And it will be that famous image. And it looks like nobody cares. But like we've just said, given the circumstance, no one's instantly going to know what's happened. I mean, even Iryna, we've heard reports on people being stabbed and being shot. You don't feel it straight away because of the shock and how quick it happens. Even Iryna's trying to figure out in those first few seconds what the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
9:52 p.m. 2 minutes after the stabbing, Brown attempted to flee the area after getting off the train at East West Boulevard station. But police were already there waiting for him with their weapons drawn. And like we just insinuated, people were there. They were making calls. Quite a few people reached out for help. And if they hadn't, the police wouldn't have been there. So it's crazy to see the kind of the criticism and hatred online that just flies with no real sort of
I remember now
it.
as well, months after this, some of the individuals in that carriage were named and had to go into like hiding because of the amount of hatred that they were met with and abuse. When you're shown a several second clip and you're not shown the immediate, then they're trying to save her life, they're trying to call for emergency help. It's because my initial, when I first saw it for the first time, I was like, why is no one doing anything? Why is no one doing anything? But you only see that sort of 6-7 second clip. You don't see the following events. But if they hadn't, as Dan said, the police wouldn't have been there.
Brown was taken into police custody before being escorted to a local hospital to receive treatment on a self-inflicted stab wound to his hand. He refused to give any kind of motive for the attack on Iryna, who was unresponsive on the train. Meanwhile, Stas was growing concerned as Iryna had not made it home. The minutes were ticking past and the door still hadn't opened. Panic began to set in as his repeated phone calls went straight to voicemail. Needing answers, Stas and Iryna's family opened up a live location tracking app on their phones, where they saw that her signal was frozen at East West Boulevard station. After it stayed there for several minutes without moving, they made the decision to head there themselves. They pulled up to the station to find the night lit up by a group of flashing blue lights and yellow police tape. It is here they were informed of Iryna's tragic fate. In the days that followed, news would reach Ukraine, still embroiled at war with Iryna's father, Stanislav, and he stated the following.
We are heartbroken beyond words. Iryna came to America to find peace and safety, and instead, her life was stolen from her in the most horrific way. No family should ever have to go through this.
Whilst her mother added,
Iryna will be remembered for her kindness, her creativity, and the lasting impression she left on everyone she met. Her absence leaves a deep void, but her spirit will forever remain in the hearts of those who loved her.
Following her death, the Ukrainian embassy offered to transport Iryna's body back to her homeland. However, her family declined the offer. They stated that she deeply loved America and deserved to be laid to rest there. Her final resting place is in North Lake Memorial Gardens in Huntersville, North Carolina. News reports and footage of Iryna's murder spread like wildfire across global media and social media just 3 weeks after the incident. On September 9th, President Donald Trump said that Iryna was slaughtered by a deranged monster, as he made the following address to the nation.
For far too long, Americans have been forced to put up with Democrat-run cities that set loose savage, bloodthirsty criminals to prey on innocent people, really very, very innocent people. In every place, they control radical left judges, politicians, and activists, and they've adopted a policy of catch and release for thugs and killers. In Charlotte, North Carolina, we saw the results of these policies when a 23-year-old woman who came here from Ukraine met her bloody end on a public train. And here's a picture of it. This is the picture of it. And this is a picture of the woman, a beautiful young girl that never had problems in life, with a magnificent future in this country. And now she's dead. She was slaughtered by a deranged monster who was roaming free after 14 prior arrests. We cannot allow a depraved criminal element of violent repeat offenders to continue spreading destruction and death throughout our country. We have to respond with force and strength. We have to be vicious just like they are.
Found it really odd in the Google Doc that we use for these episodes. As soon as I wrote down the words Trump from that point onwards, Google tried to autocorrect Iryna to Iran. Not even joking. Isn't that weird?
It is weird.
Conspiracy.
Just thought it was a bit mad.
Keep out of politics.
Look, did you mean Iran?
I'm just going to read the script like I should be doing. Thank you.
Just thought that was mental.
Trump also decided to use the phrase came in through open borders in the speech, implying that Decarlos Brown Jr. was an immigrant, but he was in fact born in Charlotte, North Carolina. Meanwhile, American right-wing political activist Charlie Kirk stated that it was 100% necessary to politicize the murder of Iryna Zarutska. In fact, he uploaded a video to his TikTok and Instagram story about Iryna just hours before he was assassinated on Wednesday, September 10th, 2025. On September 22nd, 2025, North Carolina state lawmakers introduced Iryna's Law. Iryna's Law makes it harder for people accused of violent crimes to be released before trial by requiring stricter release conditions, GPS monitoring and mental health evaluations in some cases. It also includes other criminal justice reforms. On the 17th of November 2025, just 3 months after Iryna's murder, a 26-year-old woman, Bethany McGee, was doused with fuel from an iced tea bottle and set on fire inside a Chicago Blue Line train by 50-year-old Lawrence Reed, a man with 72 prior arrests. Fortunately, Bethany survived, but was left with life-changing injuries. The accused Lawrence Reed has been charged with federal terrorism. Like Iryna's case, multiple passengers witnessed the attack but did not intervene.
Yeah, there is footage as well of this one. Eventually people do get there to provide assistance, but it's not until that perpetrator has left the area. It is gruesome. He headed to a petrol station and filled his iced tea bottle up with petrol specifically to target someone on the train in that manner.
72 prior arrests as well.
Yeah.
In the years since the murder, Decarlos Brown Jr. has been charged and indicted at both the state and federal levels, with prosecutors pursuing first-degree murder and additional federal charges connected to the attack on the Lynx Blue Line train, ultimately looking to obtain the death penalty. However, as the case moved through the courts, a different question began to overshadow everything else: whether Brown was mentally competent to stand trial at all. Multiple psychiatric evaluations conducted throughout the late 2025 and into 2026 concluded that he was incapable of proceeding, resulted in repeated delays while both state and federal courts attempted to determine if or when he could ever face trial for the murder of Iryna. Frustratingly, as of the recording of this episode, that question remains unanswered. In April of 2026, Brown's public defender filed a motion seeking a further 180-day delay of the Rule 24 hearing to allow time for additional mental competency evaluations.
Yeah, there have actually been recent developments as well. So there's an article from cityjournal.org that basically states there is a possibility that he could eventually walk free. And that is because currently he is declared as mentally incompetent to stand trial. And as a result, he may never face a jury. In fact, under current law, he could walk free if the courts conclude he will never regain capacity to proceed.
Surely he should be indicted or held into a psychiatric unit.
Yeah, why would that not mean he will be sectioned, if that's the right word? Apologies if it's not.
Well, according to cityjournal.org, under both federal law and North Carolina law, no person can be tried, convicted, or sentenced while incapable of understanding the court proceedings. He will soon be sent to a secure federal medical facility where he will undergo additional psychiatric treatment for 4 months in hopes of restoring his competence to stand trial. However, authorities could extend this period if his condition does not improve. If they cannot restore his competence, they have 2 options: hand him off to North Carolina or continue to hold him while they determine whether to keep him in indefinite civil commitment under federal supervision. And they say that the first scenario is far more likely as the crime happened on city-owned and operated public transport.
So, I mean, you'd like to think, even if prison is not a resolution there for him, he will be away from society.
Yeah.
You'd like to think.
Assume so. It states if they cannot reach a civil commitment or conclusion, his case will be dismissed. which is unlikely but still potentially possible, even though it's a small chance, that's scary.
Yeah, I can't see a world where he's allowed to walk the streets, and I truly hope that there's not a loophole which he can get through with that. But yeah, even just mentioning that other one of the 74 felonies, yeah, there's this. Hopefully, Iryna's law can protect people in the future from anything like this happening. And yeah, it's touching that her mother wanted her to remain in America. Obviously, she had a deep connection to America, and the mum's not holding ill will toward that. But yeah, it's a really heartbreaking case.
Yeah, it is heartbreaking, and it does highlight a bigger problem, doesn't it? In a lot of countries where you have a lot of people who have lost their way, like we said at the start of this episode, usually from a product of their environment, growing up in violence, it breeds violence, and there's no real support out there, or at least consistent support for people who find themselves in this situation. Which is a much bigger conversation, but ultimately it's just so sad that this lands on people like Iryna, who in the first place was looking to better her life and get away from violence anyway. It's abhorrent.
It's not fair on any level. No. The fact that he was re-released into public 14 times, potentially a 15th time, I don't think it will happen, but it's just so unfair that her life was ended in this manner, with so many chances to prevent it from happening, as is often the case in these cases we cover. It's just horrible. It's very upsetting.
I really fucking fancy a riddle now.
Well,
Dan's riddle sly and mischievous grim. Twist and turn, a mind game to win. Puzzles are plenty, a chuckle or two. A laughing thought, we find our clue. Riddles!
so we're back. Let me just say, I because of today's case and how bleak and upsetting it was, there's absolutely no link I could make to the case and a riddle coming out of it. I just thought that was icky. So I've got a couple of riddles for you that are just completely random, but they popped up on my feed a few days ago, and I thought they were quite good. I mean, my phone must be listening to me because I quite often get riddles popping up on my old Reddit feed. So.
The riddle found the Riddler.
Oh.
Yeah.
r/Reddit. r/riddles.
The fiddle doesn't find the fiddle doesn't find the fiddler, right, Ben?
You're right, mate.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
I mean, because you play.
Yes.
Right. This first one is just a nice one. You know. Let's see if you can get it. Here we go. I sound like complete harmony. I play board games. Technically, I'm only a portion, but I have an entire pie in me. I sound like complete harmony. I play board games. Technically, I'm only a portion, but I have an entire pie in me.
Calculator?
Please explain your thinking. First of all.
Sound like complete harmony. Doesn't have a link there. Having a pie in me. Pie. You can get a pie in calculator.
Yeah, I like that, yeah.
It's kind of, yeah. So it's not calculator.
Play board games? No.
There's a calculator in chessboard.
Pardon?
There's a calculator built into a chessboard. Probabilities.
There's a calculator in chessboard.
Yeah, no.
I think there's a stopwatch thing next to it.
Yeah, stopwatch as well, yes.
Yes.
I'll read it one more time and I'll give Tom
something, maybe.
a go.
You read it again, please, sir.
I sound like complete harmony. That's a big one. Yeah. I play board games. Technically, I'm only a portion, but I have an entire pie in me. Don't ever think it. I have an entire pie in me. The word pie.
Oh. Okay.
And I sound like complete harmony.
What is complete harmony? Sorry if people are screaming at the thing now. Pie. What is that pie in it?
Ben's giving up.
Pedionic?
Yeah. Peace.
Peace.
Oh, peace.
Piece. Peace. I sound like complete harmony. I play board games. Technically, I'm only a portion, but I have an entire pie in me.
Not harmonies in music. Harmonies and people getting on with each other. Fucking fuck.
Yeah.
That is good, Dan. That is good stuff.
Dan. Or whoever posted it to Reddit. That's class. Oh, Dan.
You found it, though.
Yeah.
You found it.
Yeah, I made it.
Yeah, no, I like that. No, good job there. And let us know in the comments if you got it, because we certainly didn't.
I do have one more, but I think I'll save it for another episode.
Yeah.
Because that was a good one.
Don't completely get all the gold out of the mine. Leave some in there. I like that. I like that a lot.
That was good.
I like that a lot. So guys, obviously we are so excited to be back. For a few of you guys following us on social media, you've seen we've released a few bits of new merchandise. We've got key rings, we've got stickers, we've got other bits and pieces. And I thought, why not do a little giveaway? We don't tend to do this, but why not do a little giveaway? And all you have to do is simply comment on this episode. Make sure you're followed and subscribed, of course. But comment with the word. Ben, what is the word?
Motel ICMAP. MOTEL.
2 words.
It's all as one though. So Motel ICMAP. Motel ICMAP.
And then we'll pick a random winner and we'll get in touch and then we'll send you a lovely little prize package. Get involved, make sure you subscribe. And also guys, if you're new, if you just found us, we do have a website which has way over 250 minisodes on there at icmap.co.uk. Why not log on there and see what we've got to offer over there?
Yeah, maybe in a future episode we could give away a year's membership to the site.
I mean, that's mental.
Yeah, no, but Dan's given away a lot more than that for free.
Maybe catch me on a good day. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. You know, we're forever on, like you know, so we'll be back again next week, and the week after that, the week after, the week until the end of time. But we always say...
we do. We say this all the time.
We've been known. Keep doing what you're doing.
Oh, and less and less and less and less. It's trying to bottle someone on a train. Don't do that in Newcastle.
Don't do it anywhere.
Or anywhere.
Metro.
On
Don't do it
metro.
anywhere.
You don't do it on the metro either.
Definitely.
Keep your vodka bottles and make a nice little candle out of them.
Ooh.
You know, you can shave them in half. And...
Make sure you wash it up before you do it.
get rid of the vodka.
Yeah, because that will.
Get that down, your boy.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Hey.
See you later. See you in a bit.